I saw how figuring out how to optimize a 1,000 square foot apartment was the key to the kingdom. You know, change that light fixture, don't change those cabinets, change this, not that. And it's repeatable. It's a repeatable process. I can just apply that principle with minor tweaks across the board. I'm going to be giving the wheel to Hoan in a second here, because Hoan's going to be doing a chat with me about it. So just some things that I've done and things that have come up for me over scaling, controlling thousands of units in an effort to give you guys the tools that you guys need so you guys can scale up your businesses as well.
How long have you been investing in real estate now?
17 years.
17 years. And in the 17 years, as the ad said, you have acquired 1,800 units, which is, think about it, that's bananas, because that's a lot of bananas. Some people try to go from 0 to 1, and then other people are trying to go from like 10 units to 30 units. Some people want to go to 100. 100 seems to be a big milestone for a lot we
It was for me. Okay. Yeah.
Of course. But
I scaled to 100 and stopped. I scaled to 100 and got stuck.
With the 1,800 units, we were talking a little earlier, and I was like, dude, let's get into a little bit of the numbers. I was like, how much does that actually bring in? No, I mean, like as a company.
And we bring in, just in rent, our assets bring in just over 1.5 million a month in rent.
Over 1.5 million per month.
I wish I could say we got to keep all that, but we got bills to pay with that money. But we bring in top line revenue of about 1.5 a month.
Yeah, but that's just the rent. I mean, there's other income streams, right? So
we bring in fees, and every time we close deals, we bring in additional revenue and that. So yeah.
Let's go into the first three, because I believe that really allowed you to scale way up, right? So your first one, your second one, your third one. How many units were those? Like
my wife Liz and I were doing everything in our business. Like I was showing the apartments, I was collecting rent. I was doing all the doing in the business, and Liz and I had scaled with a few investors and a lot of our own money up to around 115 units. And we owned the property management company. We managed it ourselves. We were primarily focused in Trenton, New Jersey. You know, we did some fix and flips. We had some other successes and whatnot. That was our cap, was about 115 doors. And we got stuck there for a while.
Right. And like you said, you were doing it all, including collecting rent. Where we can start is you don't actually have to do all those things. And most likely
I used to. Our growth was stunted because I was doing it all myself. But then the light bulb went off, as you said, that I started to realize, I don't have to, if I don't do some of these things and find people that are better at these things than I am, I can start to scale and get to territory that I had not been to yet, and end up making more and doing less.
Why did you think that? And then what made the change for you to realize that you don't have to do that?
Liz and I bought a 49 unit out in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I was like, oh, we're going to have to start our own property management company out here in Lancaster. She says, why don't you try a third-party property management company? And if it doesn't work, you can always fire them, and we can parachute into DeRosa management from there.
So you were ingrained.
I was the guy. I was like, this is the way to do it. Do it all yourself. And then we hired a third-party property management company, and they did a good job. And I was like,
about that?
Probably when the first light bulb went off, that I didn't either have to control the entire own the entire process for the business to go well. I could outsource parts of the process and then hold that company or that person accountable instead of me doing it myself. But then I kept telling myself, I think I can run that better. But then I was like, I can't. They're actually running. They're doing a good job. What came up for me, Hoan, is what I could put myself into with them doing that, what it would take for me to scale up. And that's when new markets started to come up. And that's when expansion started to come up. And that's when I was able to put my money on my time into investor relations and focused on attracting more money to the company, because I raised $1 million for that deal. And the next deal we did, I raised 3.2 because I was able to focus on investor relations, investor attraction, and investor management. We raised 3.2 on the next deal because of that 8% PM fee I was paying those guys out in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Because of that enabled me to 3x my raise capacity. Right. I was good at talking to investors and making complex things like real estate investing seem simple enough that they're willing to do it. I'm kind of giving you the origin story of where the concept of the hunter brain, the money, and the hammer came from, because those were all other things that I was not good at.
Right. If you guys notice my shirt, it says, "What's your multifamily superpower?" Yeah. We have this concept at the DeRosa Group called your multifamily superpower, and there's 4 of them: your money, your hunter, your brain, and your hammer. And those are 4 different roles within a multifamily team.
Well, the money, to get into the superpowers, Hoan, the money is the networker. So running a meetup is a great task for the money. Run a RIA, you'll find you'll be great at it. Like, man, I'm like networking, collecting cards. You're the center of the room. You're just in the mix. And I loved it. And I became friends with a lot of these people, and they became referral partners, and they came to me looking for help for things, and I'd help them out. And before you know it, they're like, hey, I got like $100,000 sitting in my IRA, just sitting there doing nothing. Can I do something with it? And yes, you may. You can give it to me, and I'll put it in my next apartment building deal. Yeah.
So this $3.2 million raise.
Yeah.
What size was that? How many units was this one?
That was the big fish. There was 198 units in North Carolina.
So you were able to scale up and go to North Carolina because you no longer had the belief that you needed to be local. So I guess one of the lessons is to be flexible in how you picture your business, right? Because you had, by all means, you were successful, right? You had 115 units that you had already managed
I was
yourself.
making a living, but I wanted more. More investors were showing up.
When we buy properties, Matt, a lot of times we're buying properties where they're under market rents. The question is, why is it under market rents? Well, it's because the person who's managing the asset isn't doing the raises that they're supposed to every single year. And so allow that to happen 1 year and it's not so bad. Allow that to happen year after year after year. And now you're $200, $300 below market rent. You're like, okay, I have to raise rents now. But then how do you hit the tenant with like, oh, hey, I'm going to raise your rent $450 for next year? You can't, right?
If you've not raised rents, then you're not making enough money likely to keep the property up. And so the properties likely become dilapidated because it's economically challenged. It also becomes physically dilapidated. Those two are hand in hand, right? And you're also not upgrading units. So all those things are all in tandem. That just is a sign of a sick piece of real estate.
For me personally, by having a property manager, it allowed me to run the business the way a business is supposed to be run, with increases every single year.
Yeah.
When I ran things by myself, I didn't increase the rents. Why? Because I let my feelings get in the way. I feel bad. I feel bad. I feel bad. And then the last person to feel bad was me at the end when I wasn't collecting market rents. Okay, so let's talk about, so you went from 49 units to 198 units. What's that transition like? Because that's huge, right? That's 4 times bigger. They're maybe making the same kind of jump, right? Maybe they're trying to just get to 50 units like this 49 unit, right? Maybe they have 10 units and they're trying to jump to 49 units or something like that. And you jump from here to here.
Because that 49 unit was a good step up for me in working with third-party PM. It was a lighter lift in the management side, in leading the people and designing the business plan and everything like that. The implementation and the renovation and construction management is where I fell on my face on that 198 unit until the Captain Justin Fraser showed up.
I own 3 units, right? And I want to jump to 48 units or 49 units. How would you say for someone like him to do that?
Scale up slowly, right? So double your portfolio every time you do a deal. If you own 3 units, you can probably get somebody in your network to invest with you a little bit to buy a 7, 8, 9 unit, somewhere in there. Then you stabilize that. Then you go buy a 30 unit. Then you scale from there and up and up and up.
How did you pick the markets that you're in now? Because you're not invested in Trenton anymore. You went off and you found greener pasture somewhere else in the world.
Some days it's green, but
right. What that has allowed you to do? How did you decide on choosing those locations, and what did you do to build within those locations?
First deal, the 198 we bought in North Carolina, was because I found it on LoopNet. I was surfing North Carolina in general because I knew that a lot of my friends were successful real estate investing there. I mean, I'd be straight, man. I wish I could tell you, oh, Hoan, I'd done hours worth of market research and turned over Fayetteville as the float to the top. No, it's just my instincts told me to look at North Carolina. That goes well. And as we started scaling, we started really doing more market-centric investing. I'll give a quick shout out if you guys know Hervé Francois. He is my market hunter man, and he got us into new markets such as Lexington, Kentucky, and Winston-Salem, North Carolina. He just said, listen, guys, this is where we need to go. That was Hervé's division of the company as the market hunter, which is one of the other superpowers we talk about.
It was a person that you brought onto the team, Hervé Francois, that you brought onto the team that actually led the company to this new market.
And he did the research. He was like, here's the reasons why Winston-Salem, all these reasons. And I said, roll his sleeves up and find us deals. Then I can just focus on raising money. And again, if Justin's running the assets once we close on them, Hervé's finding the deals, and we have an underwriting team that are analyzing the properties and creating business plans. All I got to do is focus on raising my hands in the air, getting the company attention. And when we have a deal, raising money. And not just a role I was good at. My given talents, my superpower is that. And I'm going to do just that. And I found out the more of that I did only that, the more we grew.
In 2020, which was a crazy time, as you can all remember, that's when we bought our 336 unit apartment building
in Winston-Salem.
This was an $18 million purchase, 336 unit complex. Since buying it for $18 million and putting $2 million into the rehab so far, the building is now worth almost $40 million.
That's because Justin kicked the snot out of that place. My light bulb went off in other fashions on the 198 unit because I had my background in engineering, right? The 49 unit that we bought, believe it or not, Hoan, was a converted factory. That property, a lot of the units were similar, but not. Developer decided to make them unique and, artsy and stuff like that. They're really cool, but it was very hard to figure that. You can't really figure that apartment complex out unless you walk all of them. The 198 unit was just like most of the other apartment buildings out there where if you've seen one apartment, you've seen them all. Okay, I can figure out how I can spend $6,000 to make this apartment amazing. and I can make it really cool for $6,000 times 198. That's 1.2 million. That means I can turn this property completely around and make everything in this apartment complex off the charts for 1.2 million. So I saw how figuring out how to optimize a 1,000 square foot apartment was the key to the kingdom. You know, change that light fixture, don't change those cabinets, change this, not that. And it's repeatable. It's a repeatable process. I can just apply that principle with minor tweaks across the board.
And so going bigger, it sounds like was almost easier than going smaller, going scattered site.
In some ways, yes.
Yeah, in some ways, yes.
In many ways, it's way more complex. The part we haven't talked about is the underwriter, the brain. And the brain's job becomes a mile and a half more complex. Underwriting a bigger multifamily property required a skill set that I could review it, but building that business plan, financial plan was beyond what Matt Faircloth's puny brain was capable of.
So what's really cool is these are the four superpowers that you really need to learn. Number one, what you are, and then number two, hyper focus on that so that you can let other people do what they do best. What I'm hearing is one of the best ways to get to 1,000+ units, which is the theme of today's call, is really build up your team so that you are doing what you are best at. So the other thing that I think is really cool about this is when you are not everything and you allow other people to do what they do best, it frees you up to not have to do everything so that you're not working 24/7, 365.
You want real estate to provide your living, and there's phenomenal benefits that real estate gives you if you allow it to provide you a living. I've got way more control of my time because of real estate.
People to really get the power of what real estate allows you to do, and it's not about the money.
It's about time. It's those of you guys that want to drive a Lamborghini or whatever, just finance it. Just you can get a Lamborghini pretty easily, you know. But it's not about that. It's not about the asset. It's not about the toys. It's about time. My dad died in 2010. He was sick with cancer and everything like that for a year, and so I spent a lot of time with him. But when he took a major turn and was in the hospital and it was pretty clear this was it, because of real estate, I was able to put my business on hold and run it from, my cell phone. In 2010, I was able to run my business from a laptop and my cell phone, for 2 weeks. And I sat in the hospital next to my dad, sat next to him at his deathbed, and spent 2 weeks straight with him. And then once he died, I spent another week with my mom, helping her deal with the fallout that happens when your loved one dies after you've been with them for 45 years. I did all the stuff that I needed to do to help her clean up her financial house, and met with her financial planner and helped her plan the funeral and all that stuff. Did all those things because of real estate. Now, I get it. If you get a job, maybe your employer is going to be kind enough to allow you to take that much time off, but you're going to come back to a mountain of stuff. Because I had a small team at the time, they were able to keep things running and said, Matt, we got this, call us, and they just stepped into my roles and helped me out. And I ran a few things from my cell phone. Yeah, I did a few things on my cell and everything like that. But real estate doesn't require you to be there 24/7 all the time. There are people that can help you do some of the doings that needed to happen. And so because of that, I was able to physically be there when I wanted to. I was able to pull myself up and go somewhere else when I needed to be there for something.
That story hits me because I'm thinking, like, what's that worth? Right?
There's no dollar amount on that.
There's nothing. Like your boss is like, oh, I'll give you a raise. It's like choose raise or choose time with your
my dad
father.
When he's on his deathbed. You can't even, it's like apples and car tires. You can't even compare the two. That was probably the biggest gift that real estate gave me from a time perspective. And it's given me a ton of other things that I'm able to run my business and keep my business running while I'm maybe not working in it all the time.
So for anybody listening who's looking to either scale up because they just have more bills to pay, just realize that when you do scale up and you build the team, like we're showing you guys here, that you get to free yourself so that you can do the things that actually matter. The Lambo does not matter. Spending time the last couple of days with your dad, that's everything. That is everything, right? Matt, right above your head says transforming lives through real estate. That's probably a big thing because one, it transformed your own life to be able to spend with your parents.
But it's not just mine, it's a lot of people's.
Right. Yeah. So there was a story that you actually never told before, but you told me recently about a property. And I'm like, oh,
it's the one we talked about it. It's the 198 unit. I didn't mention that, but because it was run by a pharmacist and a farmer, they weren't running it very well. Right. And so they had allowed a lot of folks that were looking to do bad choices live in their property. So we were touring the property with the property manager and with the real estate broker.
This is before you bought it, right?
Yeah.
Before you bought it, you're just walking around checking it out.
And this gentleman about my age, clearly a dad, hey, I was out taking my daughter around this field over here and I found this. And he pulls out a Ziploc bag. He did time to get a Ziploc bag to go pick this thing up. There was a syringe. He's like, I found this in that field over here. And you could tell he was livid about it, but I also could tell he was helpless, that he couldn't, if I could afford to move out of here, I would. He said that. He's like, but I found this in that field. I know you guys can do better than that. I got a kid, I can't have my kid around this. And then a year later, after I bought the apartment complex, he was pointed to this field, and it was a field in between these two apartment buildings. And that just so happens to be the field that we built a playground. And I was out there a year later, and I saw the dad out there with his kid in the playground. And I'm like, I gave that man I had a moment. I never talked to him because I didn't want to put him on the spot like that or whatever. I got to celebrate myself, a personal win that in some ways, because the business plan that we created for that property, like I gave that man a better life, a safer place for his kid, and a place that he was happy to live in, and a place that he'd call home, and not a place that he doesn't have to live, but a place he chooses to live.
He wants to live.
Yeah, that got me.